Hi everyone, it's Mel here from the Seed Cycle. I would love for you to stick around and watch our live about cycle syncing and seed cycling. I'm going to bring in Sarina Coventry. Bear with me while I do that and then we'll start our chat. So let's see how we go. Hello. When you're jumping on, say hello. Ah, there we are.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, that was easy. Let me just fix this up. Oh, there we go. How are you?
I'm good. I've been battling a head cold, so excuse the nasally congestion along this conversation.
Oh, me and you both. My kids were at school and daycare for 1 week, and we've already got colds. So
Yeah,
don't worry, I get it.
picking up germs left, right, and center.
Right away, I was like, first week. Are you kidding?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, and they're fine, and then I'm the one who's still got it.
Yeah, extra immune support.
Yeah, that's it. But thank you so much for joining me. We've already got a couple of people watching live, which is so cool.
Having me.
Yeah, so I'll introduce you to everyone, and then yeah, we'll get into it and we'll have a chat. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Mel. I'm the founder of the Seed Cycle, and with me today is Sarina Coventry. Sarina is a degree qualified nutritionist and EFT practitioner. Sarina educates women on holistic nutrition, and her mission is to empower women to work with their bodies rather than against them. I just love that. Sarina has also recently joined the Seed Cycle team, and she'll be working with wholesalers and retailers and our affiliate program members, offering support and training. We feel so lucky to have you on board. So I guess anyone watching this, if you are interested in becoming a retailer or our wholesale program, you can chat with Sarina, and obviously me as well.
Yeah, excited
Yay.
to be on such an honor. And everything that you guys are doing is absolutely incredible. So I look forward to chatting to a few more new faces and really, I guess, spreading the awareness about how important the cycle is and how great products such as the seed cycling are to really support that.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, we feel so lucky to have you on board. You're so knowledgeable around all this. I'm still learning. Like, I really felt like I fell into the women's hormone space by necessity. Like, I was working with women one-on-one, and we were doing, we were approaching like the functional nutrition angle, and we were doing EFT tapping, and then it just felt like there was this big part missing where they'd be going really well, and then all of a sudden that time of the month would hit, and then it would all fall apart, and the PMS and the cravings, and a couple of clients were on the pill and didn't really want to be, because they weren't on it for contraception. It was like to balance their hormones, and that's where I was like, I started researching, because I was like, there's got to be a way that we can support their hormones naturally. I'm such a big believer in food as medicine, and yeah, that's where seed cycling came about. And then I guess after seed cycling, there's this whole other world, and it's probably only been the last year where I've started to read and learn about cycle syncing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I guess maybe we can start at the beginning. Similar to seed cycling, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people watching who don't know what cycle syncing is. So I'd love a quick like overview of what it is.
Yes, absolutely. And also briefly touching on what you said about kind of falling into the women's health space because there's such a big gap is I feel like unfortunately so many women that I see as well who come into the clinic, there's such a gap in the way that doctors and a lot of physicians are trained. So I think things like cycle syncing and seed cycle is such an amazing way to help women not only tune into themselves and their bodies, but actually get an understanding of the way that their bodies work in a way that they weren't provided in school. So as much as this is nutritional support and hormonal support, it's kind of almost sitting in that gap of education that was missing, and starting to kind of create the conversation and educate women more about their bodies, which is wild that we often don't know anything about this.
No idea. Like, I don't remember being taught about ovulation even. You know, I just like, it was like, oh, you get your period and you bleed, and there was no education around like your cycle and
Yeah.
what is ovulation and what does that look like, and just yeah, there's such, you're right, there is such a huge gap, and it's so exciting to be able to bring options that isn't like, you know, especially when it comes to hormones for women. I was reading something, it's like in the 80s, the only two options were high dosage hormonal birth control or hysterectomies. Like there was no other option in terms of supporting women to balance their hormones. And there are so many options and so many things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in that same breath, this is why I'm so excited and passionate about cycle syncing, is it's such a easy way for people to support their hormones, and get in tune with their body as well and work with their body, which is the biggest thing that I'm most passionate about. Essentially, for those who don't understand cycle syncing, you might be new to it, you've heard it dropped a few times. I know it's becoming a bit more popular now, which is awesome. It was coined by functional nutritionist Alyssa Vitti, who also has an incredible book that you can get started, called In the Flow, which is where I learned it 4 years ago. And it's practically a way of altering your nutrition, your movement, and your lifestyle, to sync with the natural ebbs and flows of your hormones across the month. So at first, some people are like, oh, that sounds really complicated and hard, but when you break it down, you have these 4 main phases of your cycle, which is your menstruation, your follicular, your ovulation, and your luteal. And essentially with cycle syncing, you're working with 2 main hormones that are kind of rising and dropping at different phases of this cycle. So you've got your estrogen and your progesterone. And what these are doing is changing your stress response, changing your brain chemistry, your metabolism, your immune system. So with cycle syncing, you're essentially creating a lifestyle and eating in a way that's going to support these hormones as best as possible, which then reduces those symptoms of PMS. If you're not ovulating, it can support ovulation, can support fertility, all those really good things that a lot of women kind of are at a loss with how to support and often turn to the pill for.
Yeah. And I would love to talk more about the nutrition side of cycle syncing and how you, I guess, tailor your nutrition to suit each phase, and then how do you yourself cycle sync?
Yeah. So with clients, I typically, which is amazing, part of the cycle syncing team, the seed cycling, it's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, it's like, which is which.
Is because before your product came to fruition, which is amazing and so needed, I would get clients to typically start with the seed cycling.
So that would be your first way to, so your first way to cycle sync with nutrition would be the seed cycling. So that's how it fits in together.
Yeah, yes, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about soon as well. Yeah. I find that starting from the very, very beginning, if you're not really aware of the phases of your cycle, or you're new to tracking your cycle, or you kind of knew was when your period is coming and that's it, I find that it's a very easy way for people to start connecting with the first half of their cycle and what seeds they should be taking then, and the second half of their cycle and what seeds they should be taking then. So it sets up this kind of framework in their mind of, okay, I'm in this part of my cycle, and this is, they even start knowing how, like noticing changes in how they're feeling, how they're showing up for the day, their energy levels, certain foods they might be craving. So just focusing on those 2 simple, or those 4 different seeds across the month, is a really good way to get them started and tuning in. And then after that, we slowly start looking at different foods that are going to be very specific for supporting your hormones. So as a very brief example, for example, around ovulation, you have an estrogen spike. and it's really important to help eliminate that estrogen from your body through bowel movements, ensuring that your liver is working well. So simple things just like increasing cruciferous vegetables like your broccoli, your cauliflower, things like that around ovulation is a really easy way to support yourself, which so many people are like, wow, is it that simple?
I love that, and I do that too. And I've noticed over the last year that I crave when I'm ovulating. That's when I'm eating the least, and I'm just craving like a fresh salad.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
and so the way I've kind of just remembered it in my mind is like when I'm in the menstrual phase, so I've got my period, I want to support my iron levels. So often that's when, and people might think gross, but I love liver pate. So I'll make myself a liver pate for those couple days, and I'll have that on sourdough for breakfast. And that just gives me such an abundance of energy. It's supporting my iron levels. But like, I guess other things like, kidney beans and seaweed and
Absolutely.
so like the foods that are going to support your iron levels while you're menstruating. And then moving into the follicular phase, like I think like avocado, olive oil, like eggs, that because like when you move from your menstrual phase into your follicular phase, you're kind of in that do phase where you're just like trying to get everything done and you're like got all the energy. So those like proteins and fats support your energy over that time where you're really like, yeah, in that do. Like I feel like that's when I'm like getting my to-do list done and like have high amounts of energy. And then exactly what you were saying, ovulation for me is more like I'm craving just like a light salad. And then like premenstrual luteal phase is like the carbs. And this is when it's quite what I realized before I knew this was it's quite a shock because I've gone from like not really craving much, eating salads, to all of a sudden being like, oh, I feel like sweet potato. Oh, I feel like sourdough. Oh, I feel like rice. And really having those strong cravings for carbs. But now knowing that this is because that's what my body needs in that phase of my cycle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also love to use the analogy of almost looking at the phases of your menstrual cycle as the seasons. And some people think this is a little bit woo-woo, but it's really, really amazing for helping you to kind of land in what your body might be craving and what's going to be the best thing for it. So, for example, looking at your menstruation and your period through the lens of like winter and thinking, well, what would your body want and how could you support your body through winter? So thinking like warm soups, nourishing broths, kind of like coming into that hibernation of sleep-ins, like keeping warm, not being out and super social all the time, and then coming into your follicular phase as your, I always get these two confused because in my head I'm like this summer, autumn, winter, spring, as and eating those lighter foods in the follicular phase, you're starting to almost come out of that hibernation. You want to be a little bit more social, eating light, fresh, protein-dense foods like your chicken, your fries, and then ovulation as summer, where everything's really light, like you mentioned before, how you want to eat smoothies and salads, and your body's essentially prepping you to be in baby making mode. So it's like, let's get out, let's be social. Your skin feels a bit plumper, you feel really energized, and then coming into that luteal phase as your autumn. So kind of the full circle of the seasons where, again, it's almost preparing for that hibernation. So having your root vegetables.
That's why you want the carbs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when people use that kind of analogy, it really shifts their mindset and they're able to, rather than being so specific on, well, I should be eating these foods and I should be doing this, they kind of think about it from a aspect of seasons and, well, how can I best support and nourish my body during this season?
Yeah, and it's kind of takes the pressure off a bit, and just having that awareness. Like last week, I got onto like that TikTok trend of making the jars with the rice noodles, and then it's like, and then you just add in the veggies, and then you just add hot water, and you make like a soup.
Yeah.
And I made like 4 or 5 of them, and I was like, yes, every day lunch. I was like so craving it. And then I think it got to like day 3 or 4, and I was like, oh, I don't feel like that. I should eat it because it's in the, I've made it. But then I realized that I'm not craving it anymore because I'm in a different phase now. So, it's not that I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, it's nothing about me and like, oh, I'm being lazy or I'm like whatever, you know, we say, the things that we say to ourselves, it's like, it's just my body doesn't need that anymore. Like I need something else now. And yeah, so, and like, it's just kind of like always kind of using that, like ticking back and going, actually, where am I at in my cycle? And then like connecting dots.
Totally. And I think when you, like, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So for me, like personally, when my week starts, I'm like, okay, what phase of my cycle will I be in this week? How am I going to grocery shop to support it? How am I going to move? Like, it's kind of in the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about social events and going out, and it becomes like second nature. And it's one of those things where I often say to clients where once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Oh, it's so true. And I love being able to use the awareness with work as well. Like, you know, if I have like a heap of invoices to pay and I'm like in my menstrual phase, like I'm just not gonna, like it's just gonna be really, really hard. But I know that once I move into my follicular phase, I'm gonna have more energy. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to force myself. They're not due anyway. I'm not going to force myself to do this work today because I'm just like energetically not there. It's just going to be really hard. But I know in 2 days' time, it's just going to be easy. And I'm going to love ticking this stuff off. So like where you can, like bringing it into like all aspects of your life. Like, yeah, you can't, once you know it, it's like game changer.
Totally. And then again, it comes back to working with your body where it makes life honestly so much easier. And I think for women that do have issues with their hormones, that can often be, like I see this a lot in clinic, where women are so down on themselves and they are constantly blaming themselves, and they're like, why is this happening? Like, why is my body telling me? Whereas understanding the signs and the signals that you're trying to tell you, you have more compassion for yourself. And like you mentioned as well, you then have the awareness of, oh, well, this is why I might be craving this a little bit more, or this is why I might not be wanting to eat this. So it's almost like you can not blame, but you can, you know, put it to the hormones as your fault.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the pressure off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just means that we can be more compassionate and kinder to ourselves, which we all need to be as women. So let's talk more about how seed cycling and cycle city. Let's try again. Let's talk about how seed cycling and cycle syncing fit together.
Yes. So with the seed cycling, it's basically the ingestion of 4 different seeds across the menstrual cycle. And you're looking at different phases. So as I mentioned before, when you have that first half of your cycle, you mainly have elevated estrogen, and then the second half you have elevated progesterone. Taking these different seeds at these different phases is going to help with the production and elimination of those hormones, which is really, really cool. So, for example, in the first half, for those of you that may not have seed cycle before or even heard of it, you'd be taking those flax seeds and the pumpkin seeds, which are going to help with, flax seeds are like a phytoestrogen, which sounds like a big word, but it can help to, if your body needs a little bit more estrogen or a little bit less, it can kind of help to regulate that, and then also help with the elimination of that estrogen. And then in the second half, you have your sunflower seeds and sesame seeds, which again is really nourishing for your liver, really nourishing for promoting progesterone, which helps you to bring that calm feeling. And once you get the balance of progesterone right, it can definitely reduce symptoms of PMS. And relieve any other symptoms related to hormonal imbalances too, which is really easy. And I think the way that the seed cycle created, it's super, like with the packaging, it's super easy to know, okay, well, this is what I'm going to be taking in the first half of my cycle, and this is what I'm going to be taking in the second half.
Yeah, and that's where I was working with clients one-on-one, and there was some, like, they were just having the most amazing results, and then others who just couldn't keep up with the routine. Like, oh, I've got to buy the seeds, I've got to grind them up. And I was like, how can I just make it like as easy as possible? Like, I just want to like create them, drop them off to their doors. And so like all they have to do is like take a scoop each day. So that was like, I just wanted to make it as easy as possible. I will say, like when you were speaking about progesterone in the second half, so I struggled with menstrual migraines like my whole adult life, and what I now know was that my progesterone levels were low, and like it did take like good, like it was like 7 months of seed cycling.
Yeah.
So like it was like I was in it for the long game. But then finally it's like my body was able to produce the progesterone it needed, and then ever since then I haven't had the menstrual migraines. And I do know that like if I'm a little bit slack that month with my seed cycling, then I can feel that migraine coming on. It's nowhere near how it used to be. Like I'd be in bed for a day. Yeah, and I didn't understand how important like having that correct amount of progesterone for your body is during that second half of, yeah.
Totally. The most incredible thing about something like seed cycling is that it's so easy. There's no chemicals. You're not putting any kind of pharmaceutical products into your body. It's a naturally occurring thing that like literally just take every single day without any side effects, which I love the most. And it's super easy to add to smoothies, cakes. I know you've got the bacon, which the brownies are so good. But
yeah, and that's when I started, like when I came across it, I was like, this is like too good to be true. Like, does this actually work? Because it's like it's an evidence-based practice where there's so much science behind like the individual seeds and how it can support women's hormones, estrogen and progesterone particularly. And then now a study specifically with seed cycling and PCOS, which is so exciting. But then also like it's an intuitive practice. It's so simple. It's using food like nature. We're not altering it. Like I feel like sometimes we just think that we're smarter than nature. We try to like extract and create, and and I'm not anti-supplements, but like our bodies recognize the seeds and the nutrients in the seeds. And then also like now all these benefits that I'm seeing with women, with seed cycling, you have to be aware of where you're at in your cycle in order to switch. So then there's this like the cycle syncing coming into it, where you're having more awareness of your phases and you're learning about your menstrual cycle. Yeah, it's just, and then also something else that keeps coming up, which I'm just like, oh, it makes me so happy, is like women are like, oh, well, I'm cooking more and I'm making healthier breakfast because I don't want to put my seeds on like Vegemite and toast. So I'm making myself like a smoothie bowl or like a beautiful porridge. And so they're like, oh, it's making me eat healthier. And, that just makes me so happy because I really want us to be able to create beautiful meals for ourselves and get back into our kitchens where we can. So yeah, like just so many benefits besides the actual like nutrients side of things.
And like I mentioned before, when you said as well that taking the seeds are helping women to tune into when they're ovulating or when their period's due. Again, it's almost like this effect that you might not have realized that is bridging that knowledge gap, where women are now thinking about ovulation. They're thinking about, oh, how am I feeling in this half of my cycle and this half, and when should I switch? And it's just creating so much more awareness. And I think awareness creates more conversations, and tuning into the phases of your cycle, I found with clients as well, has such a knock-on effect for how you're feeling about so many other aspects of life. And like you mentioned as well, looking at your cooking and making sure that you're wanting to nourish your body a little bit more, and bringing kids and into cooking, kids excited about making a smoothie with the seeds. And the great thing is that, everyone across any span of the life, of any age of the lifespan, can get involved, which is really, really great.
Oh, totally. And that's a question we get asked. I'm like, can the family have the bake mixes as well? And I'm like, totally. My kids had so many of the brownies and biscuits when I was like testing and creating the recipe, that now they're like, oh, we can't have another brownie. But it's so healthy for them, so great for men, like just so many nutrients in it. But let's chat about how your services and how people can work with you, because there is so much information out there online, and sometimes I think that a lot of the time we need that one-on-one support, and it can just feel overwhelming, and you might be hearing this for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, like how do I even start, or like, is this going to work for me? And so I think that working with someone like you one-on-one is just like so great.
Yeah.
So go tell us all about it.
So I'm currently practicing online, which is awesome because I get to work with people essentially all over the world and anywhere you're at. So no one has the excuse of I can't receive the help because I'm not local, which is great. So you can jump onto my website, which is sarinacoventry.com.au. So Sarina, no E there. Or you can jump onto my Instagram and find out a little bit more about what I do there. And essentially, I offer nutrition consults and I take a lot of clients through a 4-month kind of cycle syncing package, I guess you'd call it, where we meet up once a month and look at whatever hormonal issues you're struggling with and how you can start to implement cycle syncing in your life and really break it down so that it's really easy to understand and that you have some really clear kind of takeaways and things you can do each week to bring you an awareness of the phases and how you can support yourself and things like that, which is awesome.
I love that you work with people over a 4-month period. When I was working with clients one-on-one, I would work with people over a 12-week period. I think that having that, because, you know, it's the same with like seed cycling. It's not a quick fix. It's not something that you take, you know, a couple of days, and it's something that you have to be consistent with. And these things take time. So I think that working with someone over a period of time and supporting them through that time is so beautiful, and I'm so glad that you do that. And I encourage everyone listening to head to your website, check out your services. I will link it into the comments. But Sarina, thank you so much. I am sure this isn't going to be our last chat because we have so many different things that we can chat about. Yeah, and we haven't answered questions today, but if you do have questions as you're watching, put it in the comments and we'll answer in the comments, and you can always DM as well. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks again, Sarina, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have so many more things to share and talk about: hormone cycle syncing, seed cycling, tongue twisters. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And if anyone has any
amazing, thanks.
See you soon.
Thanks. Bye.